Joining me now for more on this is former Australian Ambassador to the United States, Arthur Sinodinos. Welcome. So lovely to see you again. Thanks for your company this morning. Has the government failed Australia on this, or it never really had a chance?
I'm more in the camp that this was going to be harder than last time. There's no doubt that the Trump administration is really committed to tariffs. They want the revenue. They want high tariffs to encourage industry to relocate to the US, promote local industry. So this time around, they didn't want exemptions and exceptions. And the fact that Peter Navarro, the trade and manufacturing advisor to the president, came out swinging on steel and aluminium tariffs after the president said he might think of an exemption shows you that the faction inside the White House, him, possibly the Commerce Secretary, have won out over the others who would have put more primacy on Australia's close defence and security relationship, and the fact that we've had a deficit with the US in trade for as long as we can remember.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people today saying the Prime Minister should have visited, but it probably wouldn't have made a difference anyway, right? I mean, it didn't work for Keir Starmer.
I think the problem for the Prime Minister was that he was getting close to announcing an election, so the whole timetable was getting compressed. So making a dash to Washington also carried the risk that if he failed, that would particularly backfire on him. Look, my view is this was always going to be harder than in 2018. The Australian public will have to judge, in terms of the election campaign, who's best placed to stand up for Australia's interests. And it'd be good during the campaign if there is a discussion about, in this new world that we're in now, what is Australia's national interest? What do we do for ourselves in terms of greater self-reliance, and how much that should also encompass not just defence and security, but our economic self-reliance.
I mean, there's a lot of talk as well this morning about diversification, but Arthur, you served as Australia's ambassador to the United States. You know all too well what goes on behind closed doors in these kinds of conversations. I mean, the government says there's still hope. Do you agree?
Look, it's always possible. We've seen just in the last few days how tariffs on Canada have whipsawed up and down. And it's always possible down the track that the president, after further representations, will decide to relent. It depends what the atmosphere is at the time. It depends what other issues are on his plate. Don't forget, he's a deal maker. It may be down the track that he thinks if he gives the Australians an exemption on this or that, he gets something else in return. So with Donald Trump, you can never discount where this will go.
Yeah, I mean, it's changing by the moment, and the markets certainly can't keep up, that's for sure. I mean, there are mutual benefits to trade though, right? It's in Australia's interest, of course, but it's also in the economic interest of the US as well for Australia to be exempted here. Do you support reciprocal tariffs?
No, I don't. Under the free trade agreement at the moment, we have zero on our tariffs with the US, because of our free trade agreement. There is talk that the US may look at what we call non-tariff barriers, our biosecurity laws, our pharmaceutical benefit scheme, potentially, other things that may potentially keep out American imports to Australia. And so we have to look at what that might mean. That's a report that's coming out on the 2nd of April. The question is whether Australia is high on the list. There are other countries which have far more extensive trade barriers. Don't forget, we're a small, medium-sized country, and international trade is vital for us. So anything that impacts trade, not just between us and the US, but other countries who are also our trading partners, particularly China, our major trading partner, that's a big issue for us.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is clear, there is no special relationship here. Is this a blow to the alliance?
Well, look, I think we can either react like this is the end of civilization as we know it, or take it in our stride and say, what is in our long-term interest? It's still in our long-term interest to have a defence and security relationship with the Americans. There's nothing that replaces that. We don't have enough spending on defence to do things for ourselves in the way that we'd need to if we were not part of the alliance. So we have to keep working on ways to convince the US in this new America First guise about why their security is intimately tied up with the security of countries like us in the Indo-Pacific. It's not so much that we need them, we've got to convince them of how much they need us.